I wake up early in the morning, through the crack of dawn. I'm in love, I'm alive. And when you held my hand, when you said goodbye, I knew then and there I'm alive.
When I first arrived in Brisbane, I saw a very handsome man walking in the airport. Australian, Aussie man. And then he walked in the airport. As I remember, he was walking as a... He was kind of delivery man. But he was so handsome. I was inside of the airplane and then I just watched him from inside of the airplane. Yeah. With short pants, with the sunglasses. But he was so handsome and so first impression of Australia is so good.
Okay, in the US, I feel like Australia's fucking thought of like this fake place. Like we know that Australia is real and like there are real people in Australia, but just like you never think of people in Australia just like doing everyday life. It's like people in Australia are like either like fighting kangaroos or crocodiles, or like throwing boomerangs or chilling on the beach. It's like real life doesn't happen in Australia. I'm from New Mexico, so it's on the border of Mexico. I actually really wanted to learn an Australian accent because Americans love the Australian accent. Yeah. Ugh. And if you notice, Aussies hate the Aussie accent, like the Bogan accent, right? Oh, mate. I cannot accent at all. I have to like listen to someone talking in an accent for like half an hour before I could do it. And the problem with that people think I have to be talking to someone with the accent while I'm trying to do the accent, and then I sound really rude. No. Have you noticed? No. It's like, it's not no, it's like no. I started using hey at the end of sentences to like make it a question. Yeah. I picked up some of the slang. Seeps? Can't be bothered? Have you heard that? We have like no equivalent in the US.
So I had some extended family in Melbourne because my mum is a Malaysian. Well, mum's ancestry comes from Malaysian Tamils. So mum's mother was born in Malaysia, and then during the second World War, yeah, when the Japs bombed Malaysia, they moved to India. So their extended family, they're in Singapore, Malaysia. Then they moved to Melbourne in the 80s and 90s. So they used to come home like every couple of years, and there was an American boom at that time. Everyone was going to America. Nobody knew about Australia. You know, when they came to Australia, I was like, oh hey, you know, I don't know anyone in Australia. So because we have like relatives in Singapore, Malaysia, UK, US, obviously, but not from Australia. Then they tell about Australia and how good it is, and how less the population is, and things like that, and how the government looks after them. So I always had this good impression of seeing them, but of course Australia became popular as a teenager by watching cricket. So I still remember the Australian team right from the start until the bottom, but hard. Mark Waugh, Steve Waugh, Darren Lehmann, Justin Langer, Casper Wicks, Glenn McGrath, Shane Warne, Alan Border, Gilchrist later on. The team, which was the Australia was so invincible at that time, you know. It became really popular with cricket in India. India was defeating every single team, but we'd go to the finals and then be defeated. I still remember the 1990 World Cup though. I cried after that.
So I first went to Israel when I was 20, and I spent a year and a half in a kibbutz. And that was okay. I came back, and I think I went back to uni. No big issue. But it was the 6 years when I came back to Sydney. After those 6 years, I absolutely was devastated. Yeah, I was just, yeah. I remember one of the first meetings I had with people was about house prices in Sydney. That was what people spoke about. And I guess because I'd been living and working in Israel, and I'd been traveling to Gaza and the West Bank, and everything was about politics and history. It just felt terrible. No, it just felt really empty for me. It just felt empty, like a huge emptiness. I'd walked into something very empty for me. In Israel it's, what do you say? It's possibly one of the most robust communities. You have your ultra-Orthodox Jews, you're secular, you're Russian, you're liberal, you're reform, and you have your gay rights, and you have your left, right, and you have your self-hating Jews. It's just politically dynamic. And what I was saying about me arriving back in Sydney, and I'd moved into a place in Malara, and it was really beautiful, and I was really happy, and I liked the place, and I just walked into dinner, and I thought, what have I done? Trauma. What am I doing here? And first thing was about buying houses and property, and it was all night. Property, all night. Just the idea of property is such a Sydney thing.
Major differences, people back home, as in, okay, let's just talk about Malaysians alone. In general, Malaysians are we're much more reserved. Of course, it depends on the circle of friends that you have too. But for myself, let's say, I have good friends who, a few of them are quite quite cherry, outgoing, easygoing. But when it comes to speaking out, not many of us do that. I think because we're rooted in our culture, not offending people. As we grow up, or when we were growing up, we're taught by our parents, hey, don't say that, that's so rude. So we thought, oh, okay, it's wrong to speak our minds. So you grow up holding in all these opinions that you have, and you become known to the rest of the world as reserved, shy, or lack of an opinion. So that was one major difference I find between back home in Malaysia and here in Sydney. Everybody kind of very open. So for me back home, I'm known as one of the more brutal, honest, straightforward people around. But when I come here, I am seen as the uptight one.
Yeah, came when I was 8, from Zimbabwe, moved to Chatswood, and then we moved from there to the hills. So always been in Sydney. For us, language, I remember distinctly, because we spoke English, and when we were growing up, we spoke English and my mum's mother tongue. My mum and dad could speak both of their mother tongue, their native tongues. They learned when they got married, but at home we only spoke my mum's. Then when we came here, my younger sister was 2, so she was learning how to speak. And then we didn't realise until we were talking about maybe a couple of months ago, but my parents then made an active decision to then only speak English at home to kind of help us to assimilate better. Because then I just remember us not speaking it anymore. I didn't know that it was an active decision. But for me, I remember when I started going to school, I remember extensively training my accent out. It was something I put serious effort into. I was I will be so Australian you won't even know. And I remember even me and my younger sister, for years, we would always correct my parents on how to pronounce things. We were no, that's not how you say it. It's, yeah, and in hindsight, oh geez. Cooking is culture, I tell you, it is culture.
I love cooking. I love having visitors. Because you cook, visitors come, they eat the food. It makes you feel happy that people ate what you prepared, So I love cooking because I don't like my children going outside buying junks, eating junks. I know that so when there's food at home, they won't tell me that they're hungry or I'm going to my friend's house to eat or something like that, So I like cooking. Cooking is good, When you learn how to cook, then you learn how to, your husband will be home, In my culture, if you can cook, that means your husband will be home all the time with your wife. If you don't know how to cook, your husband will be out looking for who knows how to cook.
That's true. See, sometimes in life, when you work too hard for what you don't care about, that is what stress is. They call that stress. You don't care about it and you're working so hard to please. That is stress. But when you are working hard for something you love, something you enjoy doing, it's no stress. That is what I call passion. So we are passionate about cooking.
I'm from Indonesia, been here for 4 years. I have 2 master's degree that I don't really use actually, so I chose to work here. And I know almost everyone's of your names, wow. Actually, I learned everyone's names just because one day it was so bad that everyone's got their coffee order mixed up. And I don't want to talk bad about you, but you guys, whatever coffee in front of you, you just grab it. You don't check it's your order or not. I try to tell you it's not your coffee, and then you just walk away. Everything was messed up, so I said, okay, from now on, I put the name on every coffee. That's why I learned your name and your coffee preferences, because some of you stick to your choices, which is good. If you keep changing, then I cannot remember. Like, I don't know what you want at that time. You have pretty much the same coffee order every single time, which is good. Which is very good. So I can see your face, you're coming, and ta-da, coffee ready. It's like magic. Yeah. Because one day you upset me so bad with this mixed coffee order. Really, because some people come back like, this is not my coffee order, and then I have to remake it again. That makes sense? Doesn't make sense? Yeah. Some people's like, you have a very strong R. It's like sparkling water. Everyone in my job is making fun of me because I say the R very clear, like sparkling water. And they're all Italian. They're making fun of me. I was like, damn you guys.
I know, if you say home, I would imagine a pool, a lounge, a TV, people. Real nice people, real nice food, happiness. Rest, maybe a laptop, maybe music, something away from the craziness of uni or work and everything. Somewhere you can just rest your head. And it's really clear that Thailand is like home for me as well, because it's like, it's not just like house home. We're really close to each other. Sometimes mom just like get bored and just like come up and sit in my room and like 4 hours just doing nothing, just on her phone, just like, hey, cool. She's like my friend, and dad as well. Sometimes we go to buy like trees and plants and shit together. Not shit, stuff together. Yeah, we go like buy plants and like go buy fish and we go walk a dog and ride a bike together. Or even we go to concert together. Sometimes he teaches me some stuff. Sometimes I tell him, like teach him some stuff. It's just like give take thing. It's really cool. Mom loved dogs so much, like so much. And it started with like one. And she's like, oh, she probably get bored. So let's get another one. And then she got another one. And then she kept getting another one, another one, another one. There's a room for dogs, like probably like this size room. It's like lots of fans and dogs sleep there at night. But yeah, the bad part of it is it's actually like under my room. So like in the morning, in 7 o'clock, they're gonna bark like, so annoying. But she loved dog, and I'm just like, okay. She must be lonely though, because like I'm away for 5 years.
But basically, this is a townhouse I live in now, fairly new, about 7 to 10 years old. I moved there about 4 years ago. I'm still renting in there. And it's got, as a townhouse, it's got 2 bedrooms upstairs. And the best thing is each bedroom's got its own attached toilets. And downstairs you got lounge room and kitchen and another small toilet and lock-up garage. I call Australia home actually. I would call it home because this is why I spend most of my young days. And so much, and learning and working and all this makes so many friends. But if I go back a little bit, in my young days, when I was born in Bangladesh, and I tell you what, just a quick one, the culture, the food, the everything, the language, everything is absolutely different. So now I'm fairly adapted with this culture and language and everything. But I'm very versatile in a way, because even after 25 years, I go back every 2 or 3 years to catch up with my family and friends. But I'm very versatile, because when you go there, the way of life, the clothing, language, food, everything's different. Everything's different. If I try to be an Australian there, it's not going to work out. For me, that's home and this is home. Both. You know, I respect equally both of them. the funny thing is about Bangladesh, I would say, is it's a poor country, I would say. So there's a lot of poverty there. But on the same token, what I see over the last few years, the numeracy level is gone up so much. People are so much because of the technology. Even someone, probably even a fisherman. I give an example. A fisherman, like a fish trader, like he's so poor. Probably he makes, I don't know, maybe $50 a month, and that's his living, yeah, for his family, yeah. That guy has a mobile phone and he checks the weather on the internet. So yeah, this is funny. Like I guess a poor country, but I see funny things in there. Yeah, no.
Once a month at least, I used to come to Sydney because getting out of Canberra. So spend the weekend. I mean, basically, it's not really the weekend. I spend the weekdays, couple of days in Sydney because working in hospitality, you work on the weekends and then you get weekdays off. So I open a bus, $30-40 return trip. Yeah, on Murray's buses. Open a bus, somebody doing the driving, and I just put some music on, and 3 years later, I'm in Sydney. It's hard to break into the circles. You know, like if you're in a circle, then it's fine. Otherwise, it's a bit, at the beginning, it's a bit hard for anyone. Sydney even worse, actually. Yeah. And then I think it's sort of like, I don't know, like nightlife was sort of very quiet there. I mean, they say it's happening, but I don't know. For me, it was quiet. But then again, when I go sometimes some places, like ask for IDs, and even if you have the ID, then they stop you and saying, oh, you already look like intoxicated. And I was stopped once even, not even having one single drink, and I had ID, and I said, are you seriously kidding me? I just coming straight from after work. And he said that I'm drunk. I knew that once they say no, then they don't let you in, you know. They're probably judging by color. Yeah, might be trouble. And the only place I never have stopped was at the gay bar. They never stopped me. I used to have like a couple of regular buddies who used to come to work there. And one of them, when I actually was actually gay, openly gay, and I think he even had a partner, kind of like had an open relationship. He worked for one of the departments, quite high up in one of the seats. Yeah, every time get to Canberra, send me a message to say, hey, what are you doing tonight? Catch up. For me, like, in Sri Lanka, the reason I actually wanted to leave there, I just didn't see it like, you know, being gay or bi. It's not the best culture and a place to be open and live there. So that was main reason I was looking at kind of, you know, getting out of there. And then I'm out of the question, aren't you getting married? Back then, this is talking about 17, 18 years ago when I left. But then still there is a bit of there, but it's not gone away. I'm glad and I'm lucky that I managed to escape. People do get married just to please the society. Which I didn't want. I remember I was in Switzerland. I was actually sort of dating a guy for a short while. I didn't even know who the hell he was actually when I first met him. He Googled my name and he couldn't find me on the Google because of course I was not famous or anything. I mean, I left there. I thought, hang on a second, let me Google his name and see. Oh shit. He was a TV star in Switzerland. Because I even went out for dinners and movies and stuff with him. And I didn't know because every time we were out together, people talked to him. And I was thinking, why do you know so many people that much? I thought, okay, it's a small country, not a big population. And then even some restaurants where we went, like, they knew exactly what he was eating. My mom passed away last year in November. it'll be home till dad dead. Then when the dad gone, then I don't know. There won't be any reason to go to Sri Lanka, because since mom gone and dad was talking about the house and land that they were leaving, because lot of memories. Dad, I thought about it, and one day when you're gone, we have a place to call home. That's the reason we come here, to see both of you. That's home, and when you're not there, no home anyway. So physically that house will be there, but it's not the home without you two. Home is for me now, I can see that slowly turning here is home. Of course it was home here, but it's even make it more and more now for me, like since mom gone now, feeling that connection there back home that actually slowly losing.
When we first moved here from Botswana, we moved into Burwood, and then we moved on to the North Shore. And it was really weird going to a North Shore primary school, because every mother you meet is that white soccer mom. And it was really weird because you were sort of made to feel other. I was the queer kid, I was the art kid, I was the very brown kid. And it's why I hated my skin color as a kid. It's I wish I was born into a white family, because all the mothers would be like, your skin is so lovely, your lips are so luscious. As a child, you don't want to know these things. Because I can remember, even before my sister was born, so when I was 2, I remember not having issues with my skin. Because, I was in Botswana and everyone was brown except for, our 2 white family friends. And then coming here was just where am I racially?
It really disappointed me growing up and in primary school. It was when they were pushing through the whole multiculturalism agenda. And as I've grown up, it's sort of been I've been really disappointed in my experiences with just Australian nationals, because I've worked for a market research call centre for about 6 months, so we did a lot of jobs for the government, and one job we did was for the local council of Wyong, and it was basically just talking about so what do you like about Wyong, what are you concerned about, and literally everyone over the age of 40 was the Asians are coming and invading and stealing our jobs, and they're going to murder all our families and shit like that.
What my mum did when I was in primary school.
No, what did she do?
So my mum was she made me for about 6 months. She made me and my sister and my mum all learn traditional Mandarin, and then for another 1.5 years simplified Mandarin, because, quote, the Chinese are going to take over the world. Not in a creepy Reds under the beds way, just in the way the population growth is happening. My mum was convinced that all the other races would die out, die out isn't power-wise, and that the Chinese
It's just like that Bob Marley quote, who's why are we all racist when we're all just going to be caramel anyway?
Yeah, that's it. So I came to Australia and I just felt at home. And everyone was just, people that I know were from Nepal were just I'm struggling, I miss my family and this, that. And I just felt like I had no connection there. I was just ready to leave. And when I came here, I just felt this sense of liberation. It was so weird. And I was the most happiest. I was this is the fucking best time of my life. I used to live with my mom, and I didn't have any problem. I didn't know about the harsh reality of living in a small town like that, about Nepal, how sexist it was. I didn't feel it. And with my mom, I didn't even realize how bad it was. I could see it around me, but it didn't affect me as much because I was protected by my mom. And she was always this carefree spirit, very progressive woman. She didn't give a fuck. 0 fucks to society. I just remember, getting drunk and dancing in the middle of the road. I just fucking crazy. And when she left, it was just everything. My whole world was just, I don't know, it was different. And that's when I felt wow, as a woman, you have so much expectation from society. You are also just all that bullshit, Yeah, my mom's actually was born and raised in India. So it was a good thing that she was an outsider to where we lived in a small town in Nepal. So I was a part of society, but not fully integrated. It doesn't affect you as much, and it's good. You're always an outsider, so yeah. So that's why she wasn't as dumb as those hillbillies there. Seriously, those hillbillies. I just call them, and it's really harsh because I'm just like, oh my god. Yeah, it's just their mindset was just hell. I'm just building my portfolio right now. I need a good computer because right now it sucks. It's just so fucking breaking my soul because it takes forever. But yeah, I'm positive. Not at all. Nah, haven't. Yeah, just pushing on, right? Australia was to me this land of like white people, and a lot of Aborigines. And so and my friend, I had known someone from Nepal who used to go to the same high school. So I asked him to like find me a place, and his brother-in-law had like this boarding house kind of thing. He had the business, so he just got me a room. And so it was in Hurstville. So when I got off at Hurstville, I was just totally shocked of how many like Asians were there. I was just like, wow, is this Australia? Like that's my memory. Like I was just so shocked. Like it was so multicultural. It was good. It was different, but it was totally unexpected. Like yeah.
I like remember just growing up, just being like, I don't like being Korean.
So sad.
It is very sad.
Like it makes me so sad because we have that. You know, we don't think it's cool to be Chinese or Korean.
When was like the moment that kind of like clicked for you, where it was like, no, I am cool to be Asian?
I think that was in like probably year 10. A lot of things clicked for me, like year 9, year 10. I remember my friend. We were walking to the train station, and my friend just turned to me, and she was like, "I'm tired of wanting to look white," and she's Vietnamese. She was like, "I want to look how I look," and she had this epiphany, and in that moment, I was like, "Shit!" Like I want to look white, and I still want those white features, and I was like, why? And then from then on I was just like, you know, Asian features are just as beautiful, or you know.
I was just like, damn, I wish I had blonde hair.
Blue eyes.
And I'd always be like, what is it that makes my face look Asian? I mean, I'd always try to figure out like why they looked that way.
Yeah.
And I was like,
me too. Yeah, what is it about their eye shape? What is it about their face shape, the nose? And it became very clear to me after analysing that what was attractive.
Yeah, but it's so scary how we have that mindset at such a young age, and like some people don't realise what we realise, and
that we want to be you.
And I'd be on the bus, and I was self-aware of the fact that I was like disrupting the space, and for me that was okay. But then I would like not be in femme attire and have very similar responses, and I was just sitting there like, wait, why is this still happening to me? I was literally wearing a Mickey Mouse shirt. Like, I'm the least aggressive thing on this bus. And I had this one incident on the train where there was this, like, woman who was sitting next to me, and she kept staring at me randomly. And I was just, like, sitting there, like, have I got something on my face? Why is this person looking at me? If this person says my skin is good, is it because my skin is good or because I'm brown? Like, I feel like it just makes me very suspicious of whiteness in general a lot of the time. Because my mum was born in Sri Lanka, and then she moved to Botswana, where the crime is really, really shifty. And, like, living in Australia, she knows that I'm a visibly queer oddball of a human brown person. And so whenever I walk out of the house, she is like mortified. And I'm walking out, I'm like, Mom, it's fine. It's like I'm wearing my fucking 6-inch heels, like stuff someone in the eye, it's fine. Because like I exist within a very safe space of queer kids and people of colour and people who understand me. But knowing that there are people, like I had a thing the other day when I was coming home the other day from Sydney College of the Arts, and it was like the most beautiful moment of queerness. I was surrounded by all these queer kids of colour, epitome of my queerness at that moment. And as I was walking back, these 3 white-skinned head lads started following me and yelling sweetheart and baby and wolf whistling me. I was so aware of all my minority qualities. It was like I'm a brown person being chased by 3 white boys, and we were all bald at the time. It was just like I was super femme. Thank God I wasn't wearing my heels, but like it just made me so aware of how I wasn't straight and violently masculine enough for this society. And when you end up in that position, you realise what you aren't.
I was
Yeah.
born in Auckland.
Kawa. It's in the Bale Islands, about 200 and 300 kilometres north of Auckland.
He would have worked for the Bank of New South Wales in Moray, started there. Then he went to Kohu and worked there. And then he got transferred to the big city. And with 170 people on the staff, well, why would you bother looking anywhere else? I was working in the bank working on the ledgers at that time. He came in, a boy from the country, and went up to the second floor to overseas.
Foreign Exchange Department.
Came home one night and he said, "Oh, I've been into..." You were in that branch.
Yeah, Courtney Place.
Yeah, Courtney Place. Doing overseas.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he kept going to Wellington office, to the international department. And he came home one night and he said, "I'm going to Japan for 5 months."
I didn't say that at all. I said I've been offered this thing, which includes 5 months in Japan, and then posted to Sydney. So, and Brownie Fidge, my manager, thinks I should ask you if you
I've already
agree.
made up my mind to go.
I didn't say anything of the sort. I had it anyway, but if you'd had said no, I don't want to go, I would have said, well,
Still gone.
goodbye.
Trevor went away for 5 months.
She moved back up to Auckland to stay with her mother
Clark and I went with my mother because we had no car,
after she'd sold the car and the house and
Yeah.
packed everything and all.
no
You
car,
gotta
no
do it.
house, no daddy. He used to say. Friends and ours were really good. He'd go and play with their boys. They were a little bit older. He was a Trevor too, the husband, and he used to read bedtime stories to the Clark and boys. And yes, so Trevor came back and we moved to Sydney.
Yeah, our job was to liaise with the Japanese companies who had interests in investing in Australia. It was quite exciting actually because the Japanese were very bullish about everything. As you say, they were about to... well, the Emperor's Palace in Tokyo, the grounds was worth as much as the whole of California. And so the Japanese were very optimistic and quite arrogant in those days, which made them very difficult to work with.
But it was very interesting. You never knew from day to day if you went out just to the shops, you'd run into a little procession or the local shrine, there'd be something happening, and it was fabulous. Trevor retired in... You retired in... What year, Trevor?
95.
95.
I was actually retrenched because Westpac got into a lot of trouble and nearly went broke.
And restructured the company.
All of them got this sacked the CEO
Was that Bob Joss?
and brought in Bob Joss
Yeah, Bob Joss.
from America. And he went through the place then just chopped everything. So they offered me a redundancy package. But because I was already retiring age, which was 55 in those days, we got the sort of benefit of both in that the package was super hard to refuse.
So we got in our boat and sailed up the heads and turned left.
Yeah.
Yes, I was born in Cambodia. I migrated in 1991. My family, my immediate family, my mum and dad, my sisters, they left when I was little, and then they sponsored me, so I was the last remaining child, I guess. Yeah. My grandparents raised me in Cambodia, and then when I was 10, they sponsored me, and then I migrated. Yeah. So they came as refugees. So I was only little, and this is only what I've been told by them, by my grandparents. So it was the Pol Pot, the Khmer Rouge, and then they left me with my grandparents to raise, because they had 3 children. And to me, Australia is home. Now when I think of home, when I go to Cambodia to visit every now and then, I feel foreign and I just don't feel like I belong, I just can't come back, to be honest. So Australia for me is home. I've only been on the coast for about 4 months, and I feel like I belong here. Like in Sydney, I've lived in Sydney for 24 years, and I wouldn't go back there. Yeah, I wouldn't think Sydney is home for me, because where I am now is home. Even though it's only been 4 months, I feel like this is where I belong. I think the main reason is because of the connection I have with my family. We're not very close. We don't connect, and there's no intimacy. There's been really nothing that... There's no love and there's no support what a normal family has. So to me, it's a very cold environment, Sydney, because of the relationship I have with my family, which isn't that close. And because of all the congestion and the traffic, that's just an excuse, I guess, but it was because there was nobody there for me that I feel like I could connect with heart to heart, and I didn't feel a sense of belonging there. Wouldn't been better off living in Cambodia, to be honest. Yeah, because my grandparents looked after me really well, so... But yeah, coming to my mum at the age of 10 was coming in a bit of a shock. My first memory of arriving to Australia was quite scary, like getting out of that plane and landing onto the land, and my mother was there waiting for me with a bunch of her friends to pick me up. My dad went to get me, so I got off the plane with him, and I didn't know which one was my mum. There was a whole bunch of ladies there. I didn't know what she looked like, so I was like, my dad's like, go and call your mother. So it was kind of strange. It was scary. It was sad having to leave my grandparents. My parents, my family were strangers to me. Yeah, I've kept going. My grandpa is 102. Yeah, I got a picture of him actually. And he's just sitting there, and he's just skin and bones that's left in him. And he looks lifeless, but I think there's a lot going on inside of him. Yeah, they can... Oh, there he is. I'll just make that bit right. That's my grandparent there, that one. He's in the red chair. You can't really see his face. Yeah, that's him. He always looks like that. Like he always looks sad. He looks like he's in deep thought all the time. Because he's got a lot. Like he's been through a lot. And he's raised so many grandchildren. Like he's looked after so many and given them a life, like so many. Like if anything, he deserves a medal. I think he wants to go, but I don't know what he's waiting for. Like, I don't know,
My mum, on the other hand, rued the day that she arrived. She thought that this was a God-forsaken country. She had very high aspirations. Like, she was a very creative person. She was a seamstress, but highly decorated in Italy. Like, no one could sew like she could. She had all these certificates of excellence, and she was just very creative. So when she came out, she was living with her brothers and sisters, which she was finding quite constrictive. And so she was starting to get depressed. She had the classic, 60s housewife thing where she'd have a drink when no one was noticing. Just have a little sleep in the afternoons and stuff like that. She'd cheat. Yeah. So I noticed her doing stuff like that. But she was sneaking in some extra drinks, and she was always, where's the wine? Where's the brandy? She was always sort of sneaking in drinks, even in the early afternoons, which was, sort of a bit unusual. One incident was my neighbour came over to see me, a lovely Greek lady that we were close to, and said, your mother was on the railway tracks today. And I had to coax her away from... and it took me a while to convince her to come back home. So that was one incident I remember as a teenager. And the other one is of like a Joan Crawford moment at the top of the stairs with the dressing gown. I brought a friend home with me for the afternoon. And as I entered the house, I could see my mum at the top of the stairs. Serena, who's that with you? Send her away. And I thought, this is not right. She's in a dressing gown. It's 3:30, 4 o'clock. What is she doing? So I said, Mary, you'll have to go home. My mum's not well. She's sick. We'll do this another time. But then when I walked up the stairs to see, because I could see something was wrong, and and I went up to the bedroom, there she was with little canisters of pills strewn around the bedspread. And so I panicked. And this was a time when I'm not even sure if we had a phone. I think the phone came a year later or something. So I started panicking, thinking, what am I going to do? It was about 4:30 at the station. I knew my dad was coming home at 5. So I ran to the railway station, waiting for him to get off the train. And then, blubbered, my mum's taking all these pills, I don't know what to do, let's go. So we both ran home as fast as we could, and then at that stage I think we called a taxi to take us to the hospital. And then there was 2 or 3 years of her in and out of hospital, and in those days they did things like electric shock therapy, psychiatric wards, lots of counselling, and that's it. Eventually she got better when I was around 16 or 17. And in the end, when my dad, who had looked after her for the years that she had gone through all those mental problems, had to, look after young girls and, cook and clean and worry about her, when he got very sick with cancer, she was amazingly strong and looked after him at home for 2 years. Like, it was really sort of, the role had reversed, and I think she felt it was her duty now to step up and look after him after he'd supported her.
I came to Australia with a little bit of money. It's only for a car. I bought a very luxury car with that money, and paid the bond for a rental unit. My 2 sons were very young at that time, 3 years and 1 year. And then gradually I got a job straight away after 10 days. I stayed in my job for 1 year, all 1 year. And then in that time I applied for buses, I got through, and I resigned exactly on the date I joined the first job. I got this one and never left it, never left State Transit for 29 years. I stayed as a bus driver for about 12 years. And then I decided to climb a little bit by little bit. So any bus, after 3 years only, the State Transit now introduced long buses, which is 14.5 meters, which is no one else driving in New South Wales. So I applied, I got it, and I started to do the new route, the 400 from Waverley. So I'm climbing. As I said, can you go to the course to do the night charge, which is a night one here? As I said yes. No, there's no problem. Do I need to apply? No. You've been choosing to do it. I said okay, no problem. I went to the course. I can feel it from the instructors or the teachers there. They're looking at me, he's not gonna pass. And in the 3rd days, there's a longer exam, about 4 hours exam. I did my best, and I think I did all right. After 3 days, I got the certificate from them. Well done, you did it, and you can now do the night charge in Waverley. That now 16 years in the job. They opened the duty officer, which was depot inspector. They changed the name to duty officer, and they encouraged me to apply. So I applied. Thanks God, I got it. That's it. That's the story of my life. It was so hard in the beginning. It was so hard. Because I don't know the streets, I know nothing, and in that time there's not that much training like now, and you can't ask for left and right, you can't ask for a map, a road map. you can't ask for nothing. You can ask for nothing at all. So it's by you asking it. You're receiving your driver, or you do it by your car, and which I did with the 311 when it's introduced to Waverley instead of Randwick. I did it by my car. I said, what is this area? So I did it by my car. Second day I did the shift here and there, which is good. Of course, a lot of stories happened. Instead of turning right, I'm turning left, and people started to shout, and I started to reverse. And first month was so hard. Someone, when I was doing the 400 at the airport, there is no different stops. It's the same stop you're picking up to Bondi or to Burwood. So people coming from the airport, they don't look. 400, join the bus. Sometimes I go to Burwood, and when people take, I said, this is the last stop. I said, where is Bondi? No, mate, you caught the bus the wrong way. So wait with me now till we get back. And how long is this going to? Well, it takes about 1.5, 1.75 an hour. So they ask. I said, well, you have to next time. You have to see if the bus going to Bondi or to Burwood. You have always to be polite, be nice, and as much as you can, you have to be got sense of humor. We all have problems, but I always put my problems in the entry of the depot. And get inside the depot clean. When I go back out of the entry, I take my problems again and I solve them outside. So the attitude of the driver makes the attitude of the customer. Australia is my home, and even I bought a space in the cemetery for myself. So La Perouse. I like to be next to the sea. Yeah, I came from Alexandria, which is in a city in the Mediterranean. I love to be in a city next to the ocean or the sea.
Really, Sydney's harbour, which we have been out of our minds over, because it is literally one of the most beautiful places we have ever been, and riding ferries is a true highlight that someone should do all the time. Your work cultures are quite different from ours. We talk all the time, obsessively, compulsively in the professional class in America about work-life balance. It strikes me as there is no debate here. The argument has been won in favor of life, overwork. The fact that Melbourne Cup causes all of Melbourne to shut down and all of Sydney to be drunk is new, although we have the Super Bowl, but we place that on a weekend. I'm pretty sure that about a third of Sydney's economy and employment is devoted to people making cappuccinos for other people who drink them. That's not true, but whereas in America we have totally ruined coffee with Starbucks. Here you have Safe's Coffee, but you have about 5 coffee houses per block. I have no clue how the real economy actually functions. Everything in America is politicized. Sport has now become politicized. Foreign policy is politicized. That's actually quite negative for a lot of reasons. It means that we have a lot of trouble having civil discourse. That's what I've been reading in your newspapers. You guys have some trouble having civil discourse some of the time too. But what it does allow America to do, because things are, even in the realm of national security, even where it shouldn't be, I would say sometimes, everything is so contentious that there is debate about everything. And it strikes me as in Australia, there's more agreement, although that might be shifting, on the broad contours of kind of Australian politics and strategy, that there is less debate here than there is in the United States. The one other thing that I would mention is the multicultural angle. So the multicultural aspects of Australian society that are kind of hard-baked into your constitution, into your political discourse, into your sports and culture, which I both understand and my wife and I think is admirable. But what's fascinating is at every official event we've been to, the same words are always uttered. Thanking the original owners of the land, giving thanks to them for what they've done. And then that's more or less, as far as I can tell, the last time Aboriginals are ever thought of. Now, of course, that's an oversimplification. But what is really interesting is that for a society that is brought self-consciously into how it thinks about itself and its community members, multiculturalism, when you actually look at the ranks of politicians, business leaders, media figures, it strikes me, and I'm sure I'll get flayed alive by Australians for saying this, but you guys are actually less diverse than we are. Yeah. And there's more lip service paid to multiculturalism than there is, in multicultural diverse population in practice.
Okay, my niece was brought up by my mother and her husband in a very white household. Her Aboriginality was never shielded from her, but my mother used to tell her a story every night before she went to bed and say, once upon a time there was a little girl called Amelia, and feed her little tidbits of information that way so that all the desperate bits of her life came sort of seeped into her subconscious in a really non-judgmental way. And it was really cute because she used to tell me back the stories and say, once upon a time there was a little girl called Amelia and tell me all the little bits. So as time went on, because she grew up in a country town in Orange, she started to get maybe a little bit of a negative idea of what it might mean, her Aboriginality might mean, and so she had to sort of process that and come to terms with that. So that was difficult. But one of the things is, because she doesn't have particularly dark skin, people used to say to her in a way that they meant as complimentary, oh, you don't look Aboriginal. And it bothered her because she thought that I am, you know.
It's very strong in our area, the Indigenous community. So southwest New South Wales, it's the Wiradjuri country. So that's on the Murrumbidgee River. I loved growing up there. I really loved it. But I also felt a little bit isolated, not from like a social point of view, but more from because the community, our property is kind of sandwiched between two communities. One's a very black community, it's a poor community, and the other is a rich white community, and it's a new community. And because I wasn't involved in the town's sports and netball and stuff like that, I was not really included with the white community. And then I certainly wasn't included in the black community either. I was the white kid on the black kids bus. It's funny because our property is named after an Indigenous name. It's called Mandora. It means deep underwater. So we try, and we obviously try and do things as sustainably as we can. But the fact of the matter is that my dad and my brother are kind of trying to make the property as lucrative and as profitable as possible. Next door we have an Indigenous juvenile detention centre for young boys, and when I've had to go over there, and I've gone over there with my dad once or twice when it was being set up, and I see these young boys, and the whole idea is to give them a remand that's aside from prison, like give them an alternative to prison. And so they're taught in this place to get back to their cultural roots. They're taught about their culture, and they do painting and all kinds of expression, and it's funny going over there because it makes me feel like, wow, maybe I really don't belong here, because I can see them doing all their traditional things. And yeah, it's odd. It's something that I think of from time to time. I moved to Sydney a year after I finished school, so when I was about 19. I went straight to Sydney Uni, and I was living on campus. And that was really, really privileged. Really super privileged. I was at Sancta Sophia, so one of the all-girls ones. Yeah. And obviously there were no Indigenous people in that particular college at all. No. I'm as white can be. Yeah.
I feel safe there, you see. And that's why I feel ticked off about them trying to move me on again, you see. You know, I mean, you sleep outside in the street and you know, and you get put in there and, you know, a feeling of apprehension. You know, I wonder how long this is going to take to wear off. Will I psychologically recover? And now I've recovered, and suddenly they announce that they want to smash the building down. And that's the way I see it, you know. It's not very funny, you know. There's probably people there who are too old to even get up and jump out the window, you know, if they're depressed, you know. And but what can you do, you know? Not many people know about what's happening to us, you know. And I went into Myer and I bought some lights for the windows yesterday. And I told the girl behind the counter that I've got a situation, you know, and I've got these automatic lights that go on. They're protest lights. The whole building lights up, and I want to just give it a bit of a lift with some sparkly lights. And you know, they've got their own website. Did you know? We live here. Yeah. And she'd never heard of it. Quite frankly, I don't know what's going to happen to me. You know, most of the people are just so winded by life, and they're too old to go on. You know, and yet they're bulldozed on, and they haven't got the strength to fight back. You know, like this was announced at Christmas. You know, yeah, you know, 2015, and here we were. You know, Christmas decorations, and everyone's feeling relaxed. Comes on the news, we're going to smash down your damn building, and what can we say? You know, everyone was just rattled by it, you know, all these old people are just, where can they go? I'd like to know exactly where they're going to put that many old people. It's safe. And I just don't think I'm ready to go and sleep outside anymore, you know. I mean, I'm a bit too old for that, and I didn't think I'd have to be forced into that situation, you know, not in public housing, not in a housing commission flat. I mean that's the pits, isn't it? When Mike Baird announced this, you know, that he was going to smash down the building, I had never used the stock market before, and I'd been saving to buy a cappuccino machine. I was going to put one in the flat. And I had $4,000, and I decided when I reach $4,000, I'll go and buy it. I'll do a course in coffee art and do the patterns, yeah. And a few weeks before he announced that, I said to myself, you know, I'm not going to buy a cappuccino machine, you know, because they're too heavy, and I've got to move. I'll have to take it, you know. So I moved the $4,000 to the stock market, and I turned it into $10,000, you know, just like that, you know, quickly, yeah, just like that, you know, just by accident, you know. When you got your back to the wall, sometimes you can just do something better, you know. Back in the '60s, you know, when I was in early 20s, I felt like John Wayne, you know, I like old Rambo, you know, like, you know, I can do anything, you know, I'm immortal, you know. You know, no one lives forever, I suppose. It's just the way it is, you know. Everyone in this whole area is scared, and it's easier to say it's just me, but the sound of those jackhammers over there has got everybody rattled. Even the shop, you know, everybody for blocks around, you know, they know that the real estate value is going to go up, and everybody could be forced out of here, you know. I don't particularly, you know, want to end up in the soup kitchen again, you know. I'm just too buggered now.
I'm proud of being an Australian woman, 4 languages, and I am mother of 4 children, Aboriginal, because I am Baluch, and my husband, he is Aboriginal, so my cousins and relatives, they're all Aboriginal, born in Pakistan. I get married, so I come through with my husband, arranged marriage. First of all, I was homesick. Then after I got children, then I'm used to it. Now I love it. I don't want to go back. I was 18. I'm very happy in here with my children. They grown up here. And my mom and dad, they passed away. Yeah. If they're alive, then I feel homesick. But they're not there. That's why I'm happy here with my kids. I want my all Aboriginal girls, they're doing something better. And because this is our country, we need people, we need educations, we need everything. I born in there, So in here, the people, they don't accept me. Some people, they are racist. They're very bad. I was working in aged care, and there is so many people, they're very bad. They couldn't identify me, but now we have identification. We got prove it. Everything we got now. With the card, yeah, with the paper, piece of paper, yeah.
They actually have found that happiness, once you have something like $25,000 a year, that was several years ago, but then it doesn't make that much difference how much more money you have. As long as you have enough to provide comfortably with, you know, like, oh, I would like to get that. Well, you could buy it, or, you know, we could save up a little bit and buy it.
When I was stony broke, it didn't make me miserable.
I think that...
It made me anxious, it made me energetic, but it didn't make me miserable, you know. I sometimes got miserable, you know, but it wasn't connected, you know, completely, you know. I have been stony broke, you know. Where will I sleep? You know? What will I eat? You know? Only briefly, you know, only a day or so, I think. And only for a day or so at a time, I think. But it didn't make me miserable.
Actually, I found there are lots of...
Depends where you are, I think.
There are a lot of charity places, welfare places, and actually that's where I like to... When I'm in Sydney, I prefer going to the charity places to eat because it just feels more communal than going to a restaurant and sitting.
Sydney's a bit cold.
Oh, like one of those, please.
People are a bit cold.
And we met at one of the Greens State Delegates Council. And I don't know how Chester caught my eye.
In the fire union office.
Yeah. And I said, who's that person sitting in the corner? And they said, Chester. And then I went up to him. And
I remember what you said.
And then you sent me a poem.
Yes.
Sort of saying, why don't we get together for coffee or something? And it was part of Chester's wit. And I was in a bank queue at the time, and I shouted with excitement and explained to the person behind me that somebody I'd met wanted to see me. So that's how it happened.
Meantime, I'd rung up my best friend, not to ask her advice, just to tell her.
Wow, cool.
That I was going to get in touch with you, having decided not to. I rang up Catherine and told her. My poems have structure. I didn't write you a sonnet because I didn't know anything about you and I wasn't in love with you then. But I do write sonnets. Michael, I keep thinking, I live in Waterloo. Are you in town much? I imagine that you live in the mountains. I spend a lot of time on trains, and one of them goes up mountains. Do you drink coffee? Is there somewhere we could meet for coffee? Chardonnay? Tea? Do let me know. Chester.
Well, actually, now that this redevelopment is going on, now I'm meeting people, local people, and finding them remarkably knowledgeable and skillful, and at least the ones who gather together to talk about this. So now I'm having friendships with people around me. And it's almost like I wouldn't have imagined finding these people. And here they are. I felt really good when I finally realized, hey, I've actually got some friends around here. And then in the Blue Mountains, it was more, for me, it was more suburban. I wasn't mixing very much with other people. But there, when I went into Springwood, we'd walk down the street and you'd actually literally see the butcher and the baker, you know, like in the poem. You didn't see a candlestick maker, but you see the newsagent and the grocery shop owner, and you run into people you knew. And it seems to me that you can go shopping here in Kohl's or somewhere like that, and you won't see, you might see somebody you know, but it's pretty unlikely. I don't know, but I know in this building there are some very, very lonely people. There are a lot of older men in this building, and men don't congregate as well as women. In this area, it's what they call is non-committal social areas that the architects design sometimes. They have a balcony, there's a nice view. It's common to many of the tenants. And so they'll be there hanging out looking. But they're not saying, I'm here, I need somebody, help. It's non-committal. They're in there looking, and then they chat to other people, and there might be a table.
My grandmother was very kind to me. She liked me. I was an accident, and I always felt like an accident. Because But I was lucky with my grandma. She was delightful. Luck is terribly important.
Well, I was raised in the American success thing. And so I think maybe if my life gets a grade, it might be like a C, average, or a failure.
I'm not a success, I'm a failure.
So, but then...
I turn me back on everything.
But it's something to come to terms to, you know? Now when I'm 75, I want to come to terms with this now. I need to do something. And also thinking, what will people say at my funeral? And the funeral becomes an important thing, and then what the hell is going on? What is this all about? What does it all add up to? Like, I went through my life figuring, accumulating what could be certificates, like, okay, I'm a registered civil engineer, and G, and earned an astonishing amount of money as a computer programmer for a while. And then thinking, well, what's it for? Like providing power to people, electricity, like damming rivers in those days was a great thing to do.
And bridges, it still is.
And so then you provide power to people, and you stop floods, and people celebrate what you're doing, and you're part of a team, and then you find out it doesn't really quite work that way. But then trying to find my place in the world is scary.
Like, my great-grandmother was stolen generation. So she did not... Well, she was stolen of her identity, her Aboriginal identity. But she married an Aboriginal man from Alice Springs, my great-grandfather. My great-grandmother told my great-grandfather explicitly not to teach the children his language because she felt that it was unnecessary for them to know their Aboriginal language because white men are here now and all we need to know is English, and B, that there was some connotation to that was like of the devil or something, and that it was just unnecessary for them to know. So my great-grandfather didn't teach any of his children his native tongue either. Like, that's the point in our bloodline where it stops. I feel like culture stops. And this is the thing about the generational effects of the stolen generation. You know, like, we are all affected by those government policies. And then when you see things like Australia Day and people celebrating that, it's all well and good, and I'm definitely all about celebrating Australia and who we are as a nation. You know, we are so multicultural and also diverse, and that's worth celebrating, yes. But I think that day for the Aboriginal community, there's so much tied up that in that day historically for us that is because that is the end of life as we knew it. That's the point where everything changed. My great-grandmother was stolen from her family when she was 5 years old. By you celebrating Australia Day, you're doing her a disservice, you know, and she's not here to talk about it anymore. So it's like, I have to stand up and say it. Let's just talk about it, because if we don't talk about it, then nothing happens.
Yeah, I came from Alexandria, which is a city in the Mediterranean. I love to be in a city next to the ocean or sea.
Everyone at my job is making fun of me because I say that I'm very clear, like sparkling water.
Marco skriver den med just lägger 1 på glömmer rör sig imorgon.
You know, in my culture, you know, if you can cook, that means your husband will be home all the time with you. But if you don't know how to cook, your husband will be out looking for who knows how to cook.
People used to say to her, in a way that they mean it's complimentary, or you don't look Aboriginal. And it bothered her because she thought that I am.
I wake up early in the morning to the crack of dawn. I'm in love, I'm alive. And when you held my hand, when you said goodbye, I knew then and there I'm alive. 'Cause I can't hold myself back. I'm alive, I'm alive, and I can't hold myself